Good afternoon and welcome to TalkSports, our weekend edition, which is the Saturday Sports Special of our program. And I welcome you once again from Charlotte in North Carolina, which is my temporary post for the time being. Okay, as indicated on this weekend's program, we'll be speaking rugby. Yes, rugby. And you may ask me, why rugby? Well, as you recall, over the past few weeks, we have been talking a lot about track and field. Previously, we spoke about, we had some football, we had some cricket. And when I say football, I mean football, not what the North Americans say as soccer. Okay, football is football. You kick in the ball with your foot. Okay, right. So yeah, there's netball, there's basketball. Obviously, basketball it goes in the basket. Football, football. Don't tell me soccer. I don't know what soccer. But yes, so we'll be talking about rugby, and there are plans to host an international rugby tournament in Grenada later this year. And don't you know that there is a rugby union, the Grenada Rugby Union, and there is rugby is very popular in the Caribbean. For those who don't know, it is played in Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago. It's played in Guyana. It's played in Jamaica, Bahamas. I mean, it's played in a number of Caribbean countries as well. It's becoming a very popular sport. It's also an Olympic sport. And we'll be talking to the person behind the Grenada Rugby Union. And we'll hear all about the program, the plans and programs for rugby in Grenada, the development plan, I should say, as well as the proposed international tournament scheduled for Grenada sometime in December, where we will see international rugby teams. And I'm certain that rugby is a popular television sport when it goes to places like England and New Zealand and Australia, and especially the oceanic countries. It's very, very popular. So we'll be speaking about that. Mind you, maybe distracted a bit because lots is happening in terms of sports this weekend as well. As you know, the Commonwealth Games taking place in Birmingham, England. There's cycling on television going on. And there's also the Community Shield being played between Liverpool. Sorry, let me start over. Between Manchester City and Liverpool. That's the correct way we should go. Okay, the champions first. Yeah, the Community Shield, because the English Premier League starts next weekend, but we have the Community Shield being played today between Manchester City, the real Manchester, as I would say, and Liverpool. I know some folks wouldn't be too happy with that. Yes. So as indicated, we will be talking about the Grenada Rugby Union and rugby in Grenada and the Caribbean in particular. And my guest this afternoon is the founder and the interim president of the Grenada Rugby Union, Carrim Browne. Let me say good afternoon to you,
Afternoon,
Carrim.
sir. Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Good
being
af-
on.
Well, yes, and I know it's morning in your neck of the woods, but yeah, but thank you very much. Karim is speaking to us live from San Jose in California. And Karim, first of all, thank you for accepting the invitation.
No
And
problem. Glad to be on.
first of all, yeah, let us get a little background of Karim Browne. Your relationship to Grenada and all that you can tell us so that we can understand who is Karim Browne.
Okay, well, first and foremost, my relationship to Grenada starts with my mother. Well, my grandmother really, her resting place is in Grenada right now. But my mom was born in River Sally, St. Patrick's. Um, I was actually born in the Virgin Islands. I stayed there very briefly, a few months, and then we went back to Grenada for a brief time, very brief time, and then we moved to New York, and I've been growing up in the States ever since. My father, he's from Saint Kitts and Nevis, but he grew up there. He was born in St. Croix. He was born in the Virgin Islands as well, actually, but he grew up in Nevis, and he moved to the States, joined the military in the States, and we've been up here ever since. I think that was around 1990. I've been to Grenada a few times. I've been to Grenada, back and forth to Grenada when I was a little kid, little kid. I've been as a teenager. I haven't been as an adult yet, unfortunately, only because you get adult like income, adult like bills and all that stuff. But it's on the agenda. It's something I'm working on getting down there very soon. So, but all in all, in general, my mother kept our household very, very, very Grenadian. I always identified as a Grenadian American. Always the Grenadian people and Grenadian culture and sport and all that stuff is very near and dear to my heart. So, yeah, that's a little bit of my background as far as my connection to Grenada.
Any siblings that are actually in Grenada?
No siblings in Grenada. My brother is actually here. He was born in the States. My cousin, Carrim Toussaint, he ran for Grenada in 2010. He ran in the 2011. He ran in the Pan Am Games. That's my cousin.
Yeah, I know Carrim Toussaint.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Carrim Toussaint. Yeah, track and field.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit about your involvement in the rugby. Why? I mean, and let me make a disclaimer here. I didn't tell you about it, but many years ago, I played some rugby in Grenada. There was an attempt to have some rugby in Grenada, but it's very physical. We used to be at the Tantine. What was the Tantine Recreational Ground on a Saturday? That's many years ago, and I was there with a couple of guys for a few months, I think, and due to injury, well, I should say, injury in that the guy was getting kind of old, so he decided that he would be a spectator. But that, as I said, many years ago. But on a serious note, why you believe rugby to be introduced in Grenada?
Well, for me and my own experience with rugby, it just enriched my life so much since I started playing. My little brother is the one who introduced it to me. He went to University of New Mexico, and he was originally wanted to play American football, but it wasn't really gelling for him, and he made the switch to rugby. And I saw him play in the Las Vegas Invitational or Las Vegas Sevens, and he was playing on a pretty good team out there. And I went out there and I saw him play for the first time, and that's where I kind of made an introduction to me. At first, I wasn't really feeling it because those guys were running around out there, no pads, no nothing. And I have a track and field and football, or soccer as the Americans say, but I have a track and field and football background, and I wasn't having any part of running around getting tackled with no pads on. So it took me a while to get into it. It took me about another 2 years for me to start playing, and it was just fortunately for me, within the first 6 months or so that I started playing, I was able to go to New Zealand with the University of Kansas, and we did a tour. And we got to see the All Blacks play the British and Irish Lions, and that's a really big deal in the rugby community. So I was able to see the professionals and the people who play it best up close really early in the time that I was playing rugby, and it kind of just solidified the love and me wanting to be around it. And then the other thing for me was a couple of things, but the other thing was the community feel that it had to it. When you have a clubs in rugby, they are part of the community and they help the community. The community members help them. It's a self-sustaining thing, and I saw that and I really liked that. I really liked that the sport had a club grassroots feel to it. No matter how high you get in the sport, it always feels like it's a community type thing. And then rugby is a sport where like anybody can play. There's people on the field that are 5'3", 140 pounds, and there's people who are almost 300 pounds running around on the rugby pitch. So it was just the diversity in the people playing it made it something that I wanted to be around, and the physicality, something that I want to be around.
And how are you hoping to sell the idea of rugby in Grenada, where it's predominantly track and field, cricket, the traditional sports?
Yeah.
How are you hoping that the idea of rugby can be introduced successfully in Grenada?
Well, I'm hoping that you get like-minded individuals, people who like, I call them combat sports, people who like physicality. There are people in Grenada who like that kind of physicality and that physical challenge. That's the first thing. That's kind of the first thing that comes to my head when I played rugby the first time, and I realized that this is something that's going to push me and make me want to, to really push myself. It made it stick in my head. So hopefully the physicality and the physical demands of the sport attracts those types of people to it, that type of people to the sport. And then, with it being an Olympic sport, comes the opportunity to represent your country at different regional, international tournaments. It's a growing sport in North America, in the United States. So you have scholarship opportunities for high school students. You have professional opportunities for students and for senior players. The cool thing about rugby is, even though it has professional leagues in just about anywhere that you go, the cool thing about it is rugby keeps the grassroots lane to professionals open. So if you're playing on an amateur club, if you're willing to put in the work, you can make it to the professional levels through the grassroots channels. So I mean, there's different things that would attract a young athlete to rugby. Like I said, all the things I just mentioned, and then it's just being a fun sport, a sport that's going to challenge you physically, and it's a sport that has a potential for you to travel the world. I've been to New Zealand, I've been to Scotland and Wales. I've met people from Hong Kong, from Russia, from anywhere that you can think of. I met them through rugby. So it could potentially um, it could potentially bring you into other things that you never thought you'd be involved in.
But how do settle the minds of probably parents, for example, who may have an interest in getting their kids involved in rugby? When as someone was telling me that on the chat that there was a recent program about the lasting impact of head injuries on
Yeah.
former rugby players. Okay, um, and there are questions about rugby, boxing, these sort of sport that have this sort of physicality in it. So how do you rest assure or make parents feel secure that they are comfortable, I should say, that their kids getting involved in a sport as rugby is as probably safe as probably getting involved in football, cricket, or even track and field?
That's a good question. One, I think the first thing that I can really speak to is World Rugby is taking measures to reduce head injuries. So if for example, at the tournament, the CAC, or excuse me, the Commonwealth Games right now, rugby referees will be paying special attention to any kind of contact on the head, and that's really been something that World Rugby has been clamping down, and it's something that they're really clamping down on, because people are annoyed with the rule changes and stuff like that. So they're really been making sure that the head stays out of the contact zone, I guess you can say. Um, the second thing is, I guess I guess in a logical sense, head injuries happen in any sport, and I played football growing up. I got a head injury from that. I've got head injuries from basketball. Somebody hit me in the head with an elbow. It's not to, I guess, brush that off, because that's a serious thing. It's a very serious thing. But if you're gonna get if any athlete steps on the field, they understand and they accept the risk involved with playing sports, and that's any sport, not just rugby. And so, injuries are going to be a part of the game. The thing that we can do the best as people who are a part of the game, coaching, playing, officiating, whatever, is making sure that we're teaching athletes, especially the youngest athletes, how to tackle properly, how to get the face and get the head out of the tackle zone, out of the contact zone. And that's really all that we can do, is to just continue making the game as safe as we possibly can, and teaching the kids how to go into contact and protect themselves in the contact, and how to properly initiate contact. Other than that, I mean, there's not too much to say about avoiding those kinds of injuries. I know it's a rough sport. Like I said, rugby is a sport who's going to attract that kind of person. It's one of those sports. So if you like the physicality, if you like the physical challenge of that, then you're going to be attracted to the sport. And then within that, we teach you the proper ways to protect yourself on the pitch, to reduce the chances of injuries. Because you can never 100% take away injuries. Injuries are a part of sports, so we can only reduce it as much as we possibly can through education and through repetition.
Okay, and it comes as well with a lot of money, because I was doing a little research on rugby, and in terms of salaries and bonuses, etc. And rugby players are well paid. Well, professional rugby players.
It depends on where you are. In the UK, France, they're getting paid in France. UK, France, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, those places, you can make a living off of rugby. The United States is not quite there yet. It's still a pretty new sport in the United States. But if monetary, if you're not making the monetary gains like you would in the UK or France or whatever, you still have a ton of opportunity for education and any kind of other business ventures that you can find yourself in. So that's the work that we who are involved in creating clubs or creating unions, that's what we have to work at, the foundation of putting that down for athletes to be able to make a living off of this game if they so choose. We have to put in that work and help them out. I'm 32. I'm still playing rugby. I'm still playing at a high level. I still have a lot of gas and dynamite in my legs, but I'm always thinking about how to create a lane for rugby athletes, especially rugby athletes in the Caribbean communities and in the Black communities who are now picking up rugby. Always thinking about ways to help them make a living off the game, that if they decide to play, that this is something that they can actually pursue.
And talking about still having some gas, it means you play and you coach as well?
Nah, so I tore my Achilles in May 2021. I was getting ready for a 7th season, getting ready to try to be a part of a select team, and I tore my Achilles. So during that time period of me being in a boot and all that stuff and trying to get myself back, I just decided I was just thinking about ways I can get back to the game. And coach, I got my level 1 coaching certificate, but I've never coached anyone. But I have the opportunity now in Grenada to help with that. That's something I'm looking forward to, actually being able to get in on the grassroots level and help steer a program. It's something I'm really looking forward to.
Talking about Grenada and grassroots, let's talk a bit about the Grenada Rugby Union. Okay. Its formation and who are the people involved.
Okay, so this happened. I'll just give a brief history. In November of 2021, I started asking. Actually, let's back up, because RAN is they call it RAN, Rugby Americas North. That is the governing body of Caribbean rugby in the Caribbean, rugby in the region. So it's United States, Mexico, Canada, all the countries in the Caribbean, and Guyana, of course, they're in the Caribbean too. I saw the Sevens tournament. I can't remember what month it was. It had to be sometime in the summer, and I kept looking, and there was still no Grenadian team. So in November, we finally got in touch with the officials at RAN, and we started having conversations about how to make it happen. January is kind of when we started having real conversations about it. And fast forward to May 5th is when we had our first training. The union itself, the people actively involved with it, well, everybody's actively involved, but the people who are I would say behind the scenes, the board, myself, we have a gentleman from South Africa, but he now residing in Grenada and looking to become getting ready to become a citizen. His name is Chad Da Silva. We have a couple of newcomers to the sport, Grenadian newcomers, and Shaquem. We have Nigel Lane, Glenroy. I'm forgetting people's last name. I'm sorry. But we have a number of people who are involved in this. Some of them are expats and some of them are Grenadian citizens and Grenadian people who were born and raised there. So we have another number of people who are pushing the game forward as much as we possibly can right now. I would consider myself the interim president because I'm still, and it's not even something I even really wanted to do. I initially started this off, and I was just trying to put people together and make the connections so I can continue playing and training and playing, and they could get the Grenada rugby thing going on their own. But I quickly realized that if I wanted this thing to happen, I was going to have to stay in there and keep trying to press some buttons. So, but yeah, that's kind of what it looks like right now. We are getting ready to ratify our vote on our constitution and elect our official board members so we can take the interim off of our names. And then we're gonna be an official organization in Grenada. So we're working on that as we speak, actually.
Mm-hmm. And any plans to get the GRU affiliated, whether it's the Olympic Committee or any of the Americas, I think RAN or any of those federations?
Yes, absolutely. So we are. That's the reason why we're doing our constitution right now. To make it clear, like this process of creating a union usually takes. I mean, it takes different islands, different times. Like, if you have more expats on there, it'd probably be a lot easier because they know the game a little bit more. They know the ins and outs of it. But this process of not having any rugby and then becoming a union usually takes a couple of years. And we started talking again in January, and now we're here in July, and we're getting ready to vote on the Constitution. So we have all, and the reason why we vote on that Constitution is so that we can be a part of RAN, and so we can be a part and be recognized by the Olympic Committee and all the other sporting organizations on the island, so we can be a legitimate organization. I wouldn't ever be satisfied with just being, just kind of floating around and not really being an official organization, because I have my eyes on growth and actually being a part of these international and regional tournaments. So I know in order to do that, we needed to get that done and over with quickly.
And talking about growth, how you plan to ensure that the sport is grown throughout the length and breadth of the island and not just centralized in one area?
All right. So the first thing I'm glad you asked that question. The first thing that we're really looking to do is, especially now, is we want to have trainings in multiple locations. We don't want to just keep it in St. George's. We want to be in St. Patrick, St. Andrews, St. Mark, wherever else, in order to get exposure. And we want to do that often. And that's what we've been doing. Today, they're training in Progress Park. They train in Progress Park today. So, and we'll probably be at a different location next week. And as our numbers grow, we have people splinter off and decide that they want to do their own thing. It keeps on growing organically that way. The second thing is for growth is to get the schools involved, the children involved, the kids in any sport. The kids are the lifeline of your program. If you don't have any, the new generation coming in every year and being able to step in of the older generation, and your program goes through crazy long rebuilds and you don't, it's a different task. But so for us, we want to get the schools involved, and that's, we're going to be having meetings with the Minister of Education at some point. We haven't been able to do so quite yet because of the election and, getting the cabinet and stuff together. But at some point, we will have conversations with the Minister of Education and whoever else would be involved in helping us do that. One of the things that I really wanted to do as an introduction to the kids, and this is something that we will do, it's just a matter of the time it takes to organize all this stuff. But there's a program called Tag X Rugby. And Tag X Rugby would be played like sevens, except you would be played a man down. Whoever has the ball has 7 players. Whoever's on defense has 6. So it's an instructional way to teach rugby without the contact, because they're having flags on their waist instead of tackling. And Tag X is cool because you can put your team on a leaderboard with teams who are playing in Australia, Fiji, Trinidad, Jamaica. So you can kind of compete. You can kind of set it up so you can compete that way and see whose team is best based on where you are in the world. So we have a couple of projects that we need to complete, that we want to complete in order to kind of put some things out to make sure that it grows the right way. And later vision in my mind's eye, I have, visions of creating a domestic league where we can have rugby played regularly throughout the year. And that would kind of have a sustaining, be a sustaining thing. But we have a lot of steps till we get to that point.
Well, talking about a lot of steps, already speaking, and I saw it in the local media this week, that plans with working along with the Grenada Tourism Authority for International Rugby Sevens tournament in Grenada in December. Let's talk a bit more about that and how the plans are going and how what one can expect with such a tournament in Grenada later this year.
Well, that's something I'm excited about, and that tournament has been a huge opportunity for us. That I'm happy with my team, everybody involved, because we've been capitalizing off of this opportunity. George Nichols and Brian Stolmeyer are the masterminds behind this, and they are the ones who approached us very early in our endeavor of becoming a union and access to help them with, the possibility of bringing a sevens tournament to the island. I've played against and played with and played. Seen play some of the people who are going to be in that tournament, and there's going to be some serious talent on the island come December. There's going to be some teams, some guys, there's going to be some serious talent. I'll leave it at that. So this tournament is a huge blessing for us as a union, and not only that, but it's an opportunity for the local population to see rugby up close. High level rugby up close, and that is something that is a huge positive for us, and I'm really glad that we have that. We have the opportunity for that. And also, just from a tourism standpoint, that's not my area of expertise, but anytime we can have something where we can get eyes on the island and eyes on what we have going on in Grenada, going on in the Caribbean in general, is always a good thing. So it'll only help the growth of rugby in that region, not only in the Caribbean region, like as a whole, but in our, part of the Caribbean in our region. Because a lot of the times when we look at the rugby teams and the unions, who is usually the Northern Islands, but, the Southern Islands are going to finally get some love, and we get to kind of exhibit what we have going on. With that tournament, though, we are looking to register our own team, and that team will play on the social side, only because I feel like we'll have an opportunity to have a development side. But that is definitely something that's going to be our first endeavor as a union as far as playing. And I'm very excited about that. It's another challenge, but it's a challenge we're ready to meet.
So it's more of bringing international rugby to Grenada, but at that time, our local players would not be at the level to participate in such an international tournament. So it's not a development program.
Not yet. And that's just an honest conversation I had to have with myself, because the competitor in me was like, nah, we're not going to play on the social side. Like, I don't play social rugby. I play competitive rugby. But then, if you take a lump the very first time you go out, the confidence that you might have after that, it's not. I don't want to set us up for failure early. So and let's be realistic. That social bracket, they're going to have some athletes in that bracket. It's not going to be a cakewalk. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be some serious talent on the social side. So it's going to be a unique learning experience for us. We're going to learn how a tournament goes, the day of a tournament, the preparation for it. What everyone who hasn't played sevens, and that's going to be probably quite a few of the people we have on the roster, they're going to feel what an actual sevens match feels like. And if you've ever played sevens, you know what I'm talking about. It's a hard sport. It's going to be even harder in the heat. It's going to be even harder when you've never played it before, or when you've played very limited versions of it. So it's going to be an opportunity for us to learn, and I hope that that's what we take away from it. It's a learning experience, and let it be a stepping board to other things. When you get exposure to rugby in that way, when you get to see it like that up close too, it really does something for the way you view the game and how you view it, how it's supposed to be played. So I'm excited for the young Grenadian athletes, especially who are looking at rugby now, who have interest in it, to see those athletes. Because there's rumors that there's going to be Olympic gold medalists there. So from Fiji. So to see that type of talent up close, no matter if we're playing or not playing, just to see it up close is going to do wonders for the development and how people relate to the game.
And what does sevens means in rugby? We have known rugby, but now we're hearing sevens,
Yeah.
So give us an idea of what sevens means in rugby.
All right, so rugby has a bunch of different codes, and a code is just a version of rugby. So there's rugby league, there's rugby union. In union, there's two different versions. Well, there's multiple different versions in union, but the main versions the ones to know of, in my opinion, are 15s and sevens. Sevens is now an Olympic sport. The last two Olympics, we had the sevens tournament. We had sevens tournaments at the Olympics. And sevens is just 7-a-side rugby. 15s is 15-a-side. In rugby union 15s, we have 15 players on each side, 80-minute game, and I can't remember. I think it's like 10, 15-minute halftime, maybe shorter than that, maybe 10-minute halftime. In sevens, it's 7 players on the side, 7 minutes halves, 14-minute game, 7-minute half, 2-minute halftime. Sevens is a fast-paced, high tempo. The cardio you need to play sevens at a high level is insane. I don't want to scare anybody away from that. Like, people think like that's not a ringing endorsement of the game, but again, it's one of those sports that when you play it, you love it because of the challenge that it poses to you. It's unique in 15s where the tactics change. You're not using the same tactics because it's a longer game. 15s, you might see a little bit more kicking. In sevens, you have a lot more ball in hand, keeping possession. You don't want to give the team the ball because you might not get it back. And yeah, it's just a faster paced version of 15. So more open. You have a lot more space in sevens. So you're going to see calling all Grenadian track and field sprinters. You're gonna have acres of space to turn the corner and burn somebody down the corner. And that's exactly why I believe Grenadians and Caribbean people in general are well suited for this sevens game.
Mm-hmm. And with the sevens, in terms of the rules, the significant part of the rules, I believe, is you're allowed to backward, sideways, but no blocking or something like that.
Yeah, so there's no blocking. The pass has to be either flat, exactly parallel, or behind you. All the same rules apply. You have to ruck, counter ruck. You can't knock it forward. Matter of fact, if you knock it forward as a defender, that's an automatic yellow card. Your team is down a man for 2 minutes. You go sit in the sin bin, and now they have a numerical advantage over you for the next 2 minutes, which is pretty hard to stop in rugby. So in sevens, but yeah. Some of the rules, like you said, you can't block. You have to pass it back flat or backwards, parallel or backwards. Rules from the top of my head. There's no other different rules from 15s. All of them is pretty much the same. The referee might be a little. The way the game is reffed is a little bit different as well in sevens. For example, and people are probably not going to know what I'm referencing, but the ref might have a quicker whistle on certain calls than he would in 15s because it's a quicker game in sevens. And so you got to get the game back and rolling quicker. You might have for the same infraction in 15s, you might have a second, but in sevens, you might only have half a second or something to correct or whatever the infraction. So like I said, it's just a very fast-paced version of the game. I would like Grenada to play 15-a-side. I prefer 15-a-side. That's the game I'm better at. But the population of Grenada and the selection pool we may have, I don't think it will support that. At least not now. Seven aside is I think is perfect because the roster size is only like a basketball team where you only need like 15 players. But with 15s, you need like 30 players. And then you need the staff for 30 players. And I just don't know if we would have the population and the selection pool for that. And so that's why I believe sevens will be the game that kind of ushers in rugby. And then, we can have seamless transitions from sevens to 10 aside to 12 aside, all the way up until 15 to 15s if we can do that, if we decide to do that.
Mm-hmm. And no scrum in rugby 7? You still have the scrum?
Yeah, there's scrum. It doesn't happen as often.
Right.
It doesn't happen nearly as often or for as long. So I think the only time I can remember scrums happening in sevens really is just when there's a knock on, when somebody knocks it forward. But yeah, the scrum is there. It's not nearly as prevalent in sevens as it is in 15s.
Okay.
And everybody, we're going to learn. We're going to try to find a way to introduce the rules and the game to everyone. One thing that I want to touch on is that rugby is to me, and this might offend some people, but I don't really care. Rugby to me wasn't a physically hard game to learn. It's a very niche sport where you have to play over and over and over. And like any sport is like that, where you learn the IQ and stuff like that, the nuances of the game through repetition and just playing it. But rugby is very, very niche in that it has a lot of laws, and they don't call them rules in rugby, they call them laws for some weird reason or whatever. It has a lot of laws, and they're hard to learn on the fly, very hard to learn on the fly. So it would require us just making sure that we get people, first of all, us as a union, finding ways to introduce the culture of the game itself onto the population. Because, passing the ball backwards, if you think about it, besides, any kind of sport that you play where you're passing the ball, basketball, you might pass it backwards every now and then, but most of the time it doesn't click in people's brain for passing the ball. When you're running forward and passing the ball backwards, it doesn't really click in people's minds that that's how you're supposed to do it. And a lot of people struggle with that. So, that just comes on us to be able to teach the game the way that we need to, so that people will enjoy playing it. Because rugby is a hard game to play if you don't know what the hell you're doing on the field. It's very hard to play. So we have to find a way to teach the people different nuances of the game.
Yeah. In just a matter, just to sidetrack a bit, let me say good afternoon to Rudian from Toronto. And Louis Noel Ambrose said, Lyra Toussaint Browne?
That's my mom.
Oh, that's your mom. Okay, that's your mom. Okay. So she just started Lyra Toussaint Browne.
Yeah, Lyra's my mom.
Lyra is your mom. From where in St. Patrick, you said?
River Sally.
River Sally in St. Patrick. Okay. So as they would say locally, big up River Sally, And River Sally has a rich history of not just sports, but also culture, right?
Yeah.
St. Patrick in itself, as you will know. And as I told you, you have to get a little more acquainted with.
Yeah, that's something that I'm really looking forward to. It's been, on a personal note, that's one of the things that I've been really reaching for as I've gotten older, is to get, like I said, we grew up in the way that my brother and I grew up. My mother was very Grenadian to us at all times, and that's something I always took away from growing up in my house, and I always loved. But as an adult now, and I was especially getting involved in sports and I want to get back involved with Grenada, and not just from a distance anymore, but like up close and personal this time. So.
Mm-hmm. All right. So a little more on the rugby now. What are some of the immediate plans for the rugby in Grenada? I know you speak about going around the country, going around the island, having various sessions, and it appears to be only on weekends for now. Mm-hmm. Meeting with other stakeholders like the ministries of education, sports, etc. Well, they're now one ministry, and getting other stakeholders involved. But how are you hoping that your plans, your programs can sustain rugby in Grenada and see the growth of the sport in Grenada?
Well, I think through collaboration with the other stakeholders and stakeholders and the other organizations on the island. I think that's one of the that's one of the main things I'm looking forward to is to collaborate and how not just we can help rugby grow, but help sports in general grow in Grenada. So, always being in communication with them and seeing how we can continue to integrate the rugby into the culture of the island. That's the most important thing, I think, is making sure that the people really, really, even if they don't play, they support it in some way. They come out to the events, and not just matches, but they come out to anytime, the union or the teams are liming around or, going to the wherever to hang out or lime and have a few beverages or whatever, to come out and support and hang out. That's a real simplistic answer, but it's an answer that rings true with whatever you're doing. You need the people to really want to be around you and want to mess with you and want to help you out. Not help you out, but they want to support. And then also, like I said, one of the immediate things that we're doing is one, talking to the ministers, and we're trying to talk to the ministers and the stakeholders and stuff like that, but also find a way to get the youth involved now, early. And some programs, I noticed that they start the programs for the senior men and women. It usually follows like senior men and then women and then the kids. But I really want the kids to be the forefront of this, because the faster that we can get the kids learning the sport, the faster that we see the sport turning over in the way that we want. So we really want the kids to get in there and get in early. And like I said, the Tag X program is a program that we can implement fairly easily. It will take us still introducing the sport to more and more people, and especially the kids. But once we have the numbers, and we're not far away, we have a good bit of people, especially from the reports that I've heard so far, that the turnout in Progress Park was incredible. So, we're still trying to get the numbers, but the Tag X I think is going to be probably one of the best things that we can do to get the kids out and involved and playing rugby regularly. And then it's just like I said, it's just making sure that we put things in place to make sure that the athletes and the people who are playing, the people who are supporting feel supported. Trying, and this is going to take funding and stuff like that, but that's your job as somebody who's organizing something. Trying to make opportunities for the athletes, whether it be education or monetarily wise, or even just some kind of enrichment tour or going on tours and stuff like that. So I know for me, one of the reasons I stuck with rugby, I played many sports growing up. I played basketball, football, American football, our football, soccer. I played baseball. I played everything, track and field. But the things that stuck with me the most is the sports that allow me to have those opportunities to grow as a person, to go out and meet people of different cultures and see different cultures and experience these types of things as a young person is the thing that stuck with me the most. So, creating opportunities like that for other kids and other people would be one of the things that helps cements rugby in their lives, and then therefore being able to give back to their community the same way that I'm trying to do as well.
And I've been looking there and noticed that lots of rugby 7 in particular, lots of opportunities for competition at a higher level, because you have the Pan Am Games, that's the Pan American Games, you have the Commonwealth Games, which is taking place now, you have the World Cup rugby, you have Olympic Games, and within that you have a number of invitational rugby tournaments, so tremendous opportunities for a Grenada team in the future, probably in the Caribbean settings first, and at least getting into the bigger leagues like the Pan Am Games and Commonwealth Games, etc., etc. Is that the thinking as well?
Yes, that's absolutely the goal my goal, and everybody who's been involved so far, that's their goal as well. That to make sure that we're playing at these invitationals and trying to play at the qualifiers to get to these games. It's going to be a step-by-step process. It's going to take, development. It's going to take, and not just the players, but it's going to take coaching. And one of the big things that people overlook is the refereeing. If you don't have somebody who's going to officiate the game the way that it's supposed to, you can't tailor your game as an athlete because the officiating is not consistent. You don't get to play the game the right way. So all of those things are, have to work in conjunction with each other in order to help develop our program. And then after we can get those things to at least be working together, then we can talk about, playing in these tournaments. It's gonna take some time. It's gonna take a lot of effort, and especially gonna take the time. But the way that I view rugby is, rugby is still a fairly new sport in the Caribbean. To be honest with you, it's still a very, I don't know how to describe it, but it's still a sport that's on the outskirts in the United States as well. We all know what the main ones are: football, basketball, baseball, soccer to an extent, track and field to an extent. Rugby is still not really thought of in the mainstream consciousness of Americans. And so what that creates it creates an opportunity to get in on the bottom floor right now. And that's what we're trying to do. We want to make sure that the rest of the Caribbean is not running away from us as we try to get this thing started. We don't want to, wait 10 years or whatever, and not all of a sudden they've been able to position themselves at a higher levels because they've been playing for so long. So we wanted to start that now and expose. And that's why the tournament is so important and so crucial for us, because it exposes potential players very, very early in their development as rugby players. So, but yes, Pan Am Games, Olympics, CACs, anything that you can think of, all the invitationals, that is the goal. That's what we're working for. As long as I play, and as long as I'm involved in rugby, I will always be looking towards the competitive and getting our teams up there and to compete at the highest levels that we possibly can.
Mm-hmm. But let's talk a bit about the structure itself in terms of, because if you have a Grenada Rugby Union, you obviously want to have competition, local
Right.
competition. So you can't have folks just training without competition. How you hope to achieve that?
Well, that's the thinking of that. It will be the two-part approach. So the Tag X Rugby, we say it's for kids and we want the kids to play, but Tag X Rugby is going to be something that we hope that people of all ages will play, because it's an easy way to implement a league. And we'd have to have another conversation to really get into the nitty gritty of Tag X and how it works. But it's an easy way to set up a league and set up play, so that we can get rugby being played. And then the big thing for me would be a domestic league. I've been doing a lot of research into Kenyan Rugby Union and their sevens domestic league. And if I remember right, they run it from, I want to say, like May or June. They take a break in the middle of the summer, and then they re-engage for another 4 or 5 weeks again, or something like that. And then that keeps your sevens players playing year round, whether it be sevens or Tag X. They'll be able to play rugby often, and that'll be where we hope to draw the majority of our talent from, is the domestic leagues. Right now, what you see in a lot of, especially countries with expats, you'll see that a lot of the players that are playing, they live in the UK or they're based in the US. And that's fine. Like I wouldn't mind, I wouldn't mind that being a source of our player pool, but we want to make sure that the players who are living on the island are getting opportunities to represent the country. And the way we do that is making sure that we implement something like a domestic league or Tag X to make sure that they're continuing to play rugby all the time, increasing their skills, and getting exposed to different things in the game. the having a deep pool in the US and the UK is beneficial if you use it the right way. If you let, to me, in my opinion, if you let your foreign-based players dominate the game time, then your home-based players don't get a chance to grow. So you have to strategically use foreign-based players. You got to put them in the right spots and to help the team grow in that sense. So we have a number of UK and US based players who play at very high levels. We have a 19-year-old in the UK. His name is Avery Tyson, who regularly plays against other national teams. He's a very good player, and we hope that he will compete with us in the near future. My brother's a better player than me. So we hope that we can have those foreign-based players come in and compete and help grow the program in that way. So, but we definitely want to create lanes for domestic players to continue to grow their skills, and a domestic league would be probably the best way to do so.
Well, I was just looking at some of the results from the Commonwealth Games in Pool D. Not the best of results for Jamaica, they were beaten by Australia, and that's Rugby 7, 62-0.
It's been rough.
Yeah. Kenya defeated Jamaica as well, 45 nil, and Uganda, two African teams, also on the winning 40-0. So I mean, a bit rough for the Jamaicans.
Jamaica has it tough, and just like any other Caribbean island would have it tough because the players don't get an opportunity to play together very often. They only get together during events like that, so they don't get a chance to gel the way that team in Kenya or Uganda or wherever else would, or even Australia, they don't get a chance to do that. So
yeah, but it's good to see also that even in Africa, it's very popular, and they're among some of the tops. I know places like Fiji, the Pacific Islands, Fiji, Samoa, those places. They are top.
Those are the kings of the game.
Game, and again, I know earlier you talk about in terms of height and size and these things. In Rugby 7, size doesn't matter, right?
I mean, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter.
But does it?
It matters to an extent. It only matters as much as you let it, I guess. I've only been playing rugby for 4 years. I've been around the game for 6, been playing for 4. I took a couple years off here and there. I'm 5'9", about 190 some pounds, and I've tackled guys who are 250, 260 pounds. I'm not going to say it didn't hurt. I'm not going to say that I had to really make a decision in seeing a 6'4", 260 pound Tongan or Samoan running full force at me. I'm not going to say that it didn't hurt, but I did make the tackle. And so, I mean, size matters only to an extent. If you got the heart and if you have the tackle technique, you can win and you could be a standout. Like I said, there's international rugby superstars who are like 5'5". Faf de Klerk in South Africa, he's a scrum half, but he's only like 5'4", something like that. He's not a very big guy, but he's one of the roughest, most aggressive guys on the field. So it just depends on what you do with the size that you have. There's some big guys I know. I've been around some big guys on the field who are soft, and they didn't really have the heart or the aggression to go along with that size. So they were easier to tackle and stuff like that. And I've met, like I said, people who were very, very small, but who were like pit bulls on the field. Like you couldn't get them off of you. So there's something in it for everybody. Like I said, you could be slow, you could be fast, you could be extremely powerful. You could be anything on a rugby pitch. You're going to find a spot for you. Sevens now, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. If you don't like cardio, sevens might not be the thing for you. If you like to run around and like the cardio, you like that challenge, then come play sevens. It's going to be a fun time.
But do you think that based on the sort of physique of folks in Grenada and the Caribbean, and let's look at Grenada in particular, that rugby seven is an ideal fit for um, our folks. For example, in track and field, they said that folks from the Caribbean are some of the best sprinters.
Mhm.
In Grenada, we are the best throwers
Yeah.
because we grew up, as they say, pelting at mangoes, etc. Our guys probably grew up wrestling, fighting, as
Yeah.
you say. So in terms of the tackling and learning the technique, you think rugby will be able to sustain once, you know, everything in place and the guys understand the laws slash rules and the techniques of the game, that it's something that will be able to be sustained.
Yes. I think, Grenadians being like, any African, any people who come, descend from African, we have the fast twitch and the muscle fibers to be good at the sport. Um, if you've watched the United States rugby play, a lot of their athletes, Perry Baker, Colin Niles, Kevon Williams, those guys come from other sports. They come from Colin Niles was an American sprinter. He ran a 10-1 in the 100 meters, and he came to rugby. And I mean, this guy is just tearing it up because they don't have speed like that in rugby. So you look at the Grenadian athletic pool, no matter what sport. Across the board, Grenadians are going to have that fast twitch sprinter, explosive potential. Of course, we're going to have to do some, strength and conditioning to really, maximize and tap on and then maximize that potential. But the potential is there. And so we just have to show them. Like I said, the game is wide open. It's a wide open game. So you have a fast guy in the outer channels of the game. They're going to see space and they're going to want to run. So we just got to, Grenadians to me are well suited for this sport. It's a sevens more so than 15s. It feels like it's a sprinter's game. It's a game where you're going to be running at fast speeds very often. And the body type that you have to, well, not have to have, because even in sevens, you see people who are tall, big, maybe more round, who are very good at sevens. I mean, if you look at the Kenyan team, there's a number of players on there who are not the slender sprint type. They're big guys, but they play more in the middle of the field. But even in that sense, they still have explosive power. And even just seeing the people who are training right now in Grenada, those are the guys who fit the bill. They might not look like sprinters, they might not be sprinters, but they have extremely explosive power, who might play in the middle of the field when they play sevens. And so you see it all around Grenada. Now it's all about just, getting those athletes in there, again, getting them on the strength and conditioning program, and then putting them on the field and see how letting them loose.
Well,
I
it's
think
like
I've been watching, my cousin, being around my cousin, because we went to school together. We were both at the University of Kansas, and watching him up close and being able to look at Grenadian sports, Grenadian athletes. I watched your show with Rondell Bartholomew, and I remember when he ran the world leading time. And I remember I remember that, and I was like, man, like Grenada has so much like talent. Like where are our athletes? Like I believe Grenadian sprinters especially should be in the finals more than we actually are. I think we have that kind of talent, and I think we have that athlete pool. People think about Grenada as like, oh, it's a tiny island. I was like, man, per capita though, we have a lot of talented athletes. Rondell, Caron, and Karani, the Trish Bartholomew, I think Redhead. I can't remember his first name.
Joel.
They were all in D1 programs around the same time. And not just D1, some team in like Ohio or whatever. These are D1 Big 12 SEC schools that they're at the same time. The whole generation. And so I know that there's Grenadian superstars out there. We just have to, do the right things to make sure that we're putting them out there.
Well, I want to thank you, but just before you go, Are you you have a military background or just your parents?
Now I have a military background as well.
Oh, so you come from a military family.
Yeah, so my dad, like my dad came from the Caribbean and joined the military. He was in there for my whole life. He was in there for 25 years. So I grew up as a pretty much a military brat.
And you
And then I
yourself,
joined for 6 years after high school. I did that for a little bit and then went to finish school and then got out and found rugby.
okay.
Trained with the track and field with my cousin up there at University of Kansas. Trained with them for a little while. Track didn't work out for me. I'm okay with it. I'm fine. I ran track all throughout. You know, I was a fast kid all throughout middle school, high school. Got to college, tried it, and it didn't work out. I'm cool with that. But then it brought me to rugby, and that's the thing that is working out. So it's all good.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, I want to thank you very much, Carrim, and the opportunity, invitation. We can chat again another time,
I
yourself
hope
and
so.
others.
Yeah.
Once things now that the word is out, and I'm certain that some of the guys locally will be energized and will be able to have some more guys, chatting about the Grenada Rugby Union as well as the development and the progress of the plans in Grenada as well.
Yeah, I hope to be back on the show to give you some updates later on this year. So November timeframe when we're getting ready to, when we've been training as a team and getting ready to put our team in. I hope to give you some updates, man. This has been a cool experience. I appreciate you for it.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Carrim. Thank you very much.
All right, till next time.
All right then. Okay then. So folks, that's where you heard it there from Carrim Browne, live in San Jose, California. It's still morning time there,
Barely.
Yes, but join us to give us as much as possible with our rugby discussion. And it's first time for the program having rugby, hearing all about the Grenada Rugby Union, as well as plans for an international rugby tournament in Grenada come December. I want to thank you very much and thank all of you who've been part of the program. Thank you very much, Rudy, and I see Dominic Loxton.
That's one of my best friends. I've known him since high school.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Yeah, right. So thank you very much. And Louise Noel Ambrose. So you made contact with Lyra Toussaint Browne. That's the mom of Carrim Browne.
Shout out to mom.
Yeah, thank you very much once again. All the best, folks, and invitation is yours to join us next week for another program. Hopefully, we may be talking NACAC Open Championships, probably wrapping up on the Commonwealth Games. We also have the World Under 20 Championships taking place in Cali, in Colombia, in 2 days' time. Our folks are heading there. We have a 3-member team that's heading to Cali in Colombia, as well as you know, the Commonwealth Games ongoing. So lots of action taking place, and we will keep you updated as it's necessary. Thank you very much, folks. And once again, invitation is to join us come next Saturday, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, for another of our Saturday Sports Special. I'm Michael Bascom, wishing you a pleasant